Folks, some politicians just refuse to go quietly in that night. Turns out that South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is looking to interdict the Phala Phala impeachment, making an effort to stall the Section 89 committee process following the Constitutional Court's recent ruling that they must accept the decision of the body that created the report. African National Congress sources have been reporting to multiple media outlets in South Africa that Ramaphosa has decided to stall the impeachment proceedings, with the party, the ANC, throwing its weight behind the move. Now, this comes as no surprise. The ANC and its politicians enmeshed in corruption after corruption case. Everywhere you look, Zandile Gumeda, Zwelin Kizi, Paul Mashatile, Cyril Ramaphosa. Take your pick. Lots of corruption in South Africa. Now, these sources told media outlets that Ramaphosa is planning to file an urgent court interdict to block the establishment of the impeachment committee after that ruling. Now, he recently said that he welcomes the scrutiny of an impeachment of the process and he will follow the law. But the ANC sources say he has no intention whatsoever to following the law. Well, he'll follow the rule of law, but he has no intention to have his day in court. He's seeking to circumvent a day in court. Apparently, according to sources inside the African National Congress, this quote, "The party has already decided its position. Everyone must toe the line." In other words, everyone must do exactly what the ANC tells them to do. So if you believe the president is guilty of corruption and you're a member of the ANC, you must vote that he's not guilty of corruption. This is how he skated justice so far. Just a week ago, after the Constitutional Court made its decision, which is intended to hold him to account, he announced that he would not resign. Instead, he's going to launch an urgent judicial review to legally challenge the Section 89 independent panel report regarding the scandal. Of course, that report is perfectly in line with the Constitution. He says he follows the Constitution, and the ANC consistently says that they adhere to international norms and to the rule of law. But that's just pure poppycock, balderdash. There's no intention of adhering to the rule of law. If he did, he would have resigned. And if the rule of law was applicable in South Africa, there would have been criminal charges preferred against whoever is responsible for the kidnapping, the torture, the bribery, the money laundering, the perjury, and all the other things that have clearly occurred in this case. Now, the National Executive Committee of the ANC had their meeting, and Secretary General Fikile Mbalula announced that the committee unanimously reaffirmed its full support for Ramaphosa. Well, of course they do, because if Ramaphosa goes down, so does the ANC. He stated, Fikile, that the NEC was not asked to consider recall or even a resignation of Ramaphosa. He said that Ramaphosa's mandate from party branches remains intact until the next elective conference in 2027. And that mandate, of course, unspoken, is nothing but pilfering, robbing the country blind. That's why the ANC doesn't want him to go. On his watch, corruption has manifestly grown much worse than even under the state capture era of Jacob Zuma. Now, according to a legal expert, Zletu Madasa, Ramaphosa will have to show that he has the right to make the application, or that there's a risk that if the action against him is not stopped, he can suffer irreparable harm to his rights. Well, appearing before justice would harm his rights. What rights would be harmed by this inquiry or impeachment? Nothing. It's a legal process. As to whether the impeachment process can cause irreparable harm or not, if stopped, is a moot point that the court will have to weigh, because its impeachment is an inquiry. Depending on the evidence, it does not mean that he will be found guilty. Exactly. He might be found innocent. So how will he suffer irreparable harm? This is utter poppycock, balderdash. Now, this legal expert said, in addition, stopping the process may violate Parliament's constitutionally entrenched duty to oversee the executive branch. Also, the impeachment is a procedure provided for in the Constitution. So court may not stop the exercise of constitutional provisions. Therefore, the court may say the president cannot use courts to avoid subjecting himself to accountability of Parliament, which is a separate organ of state, has checks and balances against the executive. But that's exactly what he seeks to do, while pretending that he believes in the rule of law and obeys the law. Cyril Ramaphosa is seeking to go around the Constitution, and he'll take the same approach that Jacob Zuma took. Stalingrad tactics: delay, 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 and attempt to never be prosecuted. Quite frankly, this case shouldn't even be an issue for Parliament. They should long ago decided that his actions violated ethical standards. There's a clear conflict of interest. The president still running his businesses while serving as president. There's a clear criminal activity taking place at Phala Phala: money laundering, kidnapping, torture, perversion of the means of justice, perjury, and lies by the South African VIP unit, VIP protection unit. If Ramaphosa is not guilty, someone clearly is. This money, $580,000, was delivered by a so-called Sudanese businessman for the cock and bull story of buying a prize bull, Ankole bull, on Christmas Day, 2019. The money, $580,000 in crisp U.S. bills with banknote wrappers still around them, was stuffed in the furniture at Phala Phala, not put into a bank, not declared to South Africa's Customs Service or to the South African Revenue Service. There's prima facie evidence of clear criminal activity here. What's most puzzling about this is that this is the one case we know about. How many other times has Cyril Ramaphosa's game ranch taken cash deliveries from dodgy businessmen from Sudan who never took the bull home or even took any samples of semen with him? This, ladies and gentlemen, is most likely the tip of the iceberg. And this is what South Africa's politicians have been getting away with for years: evading the law, misrepresenting themselves, and pilfering from the people of South Africa. There is no accountability. There is no justice unless you're connected. Then you get your way. By the way, where is Shabir Sheikh? Is he dead? Or is he still out on the golf course a dozen plus years after his release from prison for his fatal diagnosis? Remember that? Yeah. Justice has left the building in South Africa. Will Cyril Ramaphosa ever face the music? Perhaps not in South Africa. But the 5 terrorism cases currently in the courts in the United States may be where justice is served in the case of Cyril Ramaphosa. What say you, South Africa? Mzansi? Cheers.